Morning.
Morning.
Morning. Today is Sunday, May 21st. Sorry, just getting set here. You have to move in. There we go. Okay. Let's start by saying, making our aspirations and setting our intentions by saying the four immeasurables prayer. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from happiness that is never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. Excellent. Okay. So we will start. We'll start with meditation. For those of you who are new or haven't done this before, we like to sit on the floor. You can use a cushion and sit cross-legged, like Victoria's doing, or legs folded. Sometimes if you can put one leg up, or just simple cross-legged. The good thing is to have your hips either aligned or above your knees. That's going to make it a little more comfortable for you. So if you need two pillows, if you need one, that's really gonna help. Just kind of be easier on your back. It's important to keep your back straight, not rigid. Your shoulders are straight. They're not like pulled back in like some military attention pose, but just straight. Hands, you could do this where you have your left palm and the back of your right hand together in your lap, or you can just rest your hands, this kind of thing. That's always good. Or this, or this. It's not that critical, really. The head should be tilted a little bit forward, right? So that chin's down a little bit. We like to do it with our lips closed, but our teeth slightly apart, the tongue resting at the place where the upper teeth meet the roof of your mouth. If you can't breathe through your nose, then breathe through your mouth. But if you can breathe through your nose, you should do that. The eyes, we do eyes open, and the gaze of the eyes should be, we're not spaced out of focus, nor are we like really intensely staring something down. It's kind of a resting gaze on whatever's in front of you, relaxed. Neither like tuning it out nor like super focusing on it. We're going to breathe through our nose, like I said. It's not like a really deep breath, nor is it a shallow breath. It's kind of an easy, calm. If you get that, inhale, exhale. If you need a deep breath, you need a burst of oxygen, you can take one, but then go back to that more measured, calm, easy breath. And that's the basic posture and the breathing and how your eyes are at. They always talk about the guitar string. When a guitar string is too loose, it doesn't make a tone, and when it's too tight, it doesn't make a tone. So we're not being too loose, we're not being too tight, but we are being some relaxed. There should be even though we are at a certain degree of attention, and a certain degree of readiness, if you will, and erectness, but there's a relaxation to it. And settle into this. And then what we're going to be doing is putting our awareness and our attention at first on the breath, especially if you're new. Actually, putting your attention on where the breath is going in and out of your nose. And also using your awareness to realize when you're thinking, when a thought arises, no matter what the thought may be. And when you realize a thought has arisen, you can just put your use your attention, your awareness to go back to that breath, go back to the place, putting your awareness on that place between your nose and upper lip, back to the breath, almost like you're saying that to yourself. And again, breathe, focus on the breath, and a thought arises. Again, back to the breath. The key here is noticing that you're thinking, which is harder than it sounds, actually. It's simple, but it's not that easy because we're very used to being lost in our thoughts. The stream of thoughts, that continual interior monologue that's been going on our entire lives, Those of you who've been doing it a while, either in other, with other teachers or other classes or in this class for a while, we also use a technique of visualization. It's almost like a metaphor that the mind itself is this very limitless, clear, stainless blue, spacious sky. And the thought is like a cloud that has arisen in that sky. It comes from the sky and then it dissolves back into the sky. It does not leave a trace. It does not damage the sky. It doesn't alter the sky in any way. As the true nature of our mind is very much like that kind of limitless, calm, peaceful clarity. And we should try to relate to that and know that that is there. So when a thought arises, if you see it as a cloud that has arisen, once you are aware of it, watch it dissolve and then settle back into that clarity of sky-like nature of mind, right? When the thought arises, and this is really important, it's very key not to judge the thought, not to kind of label it as a bad thought, as a good thought, not to think I shouldn't be thinking. The mind thinks, that's what it does. It's okay. So we're not judging the thought, we're not labeling it, nor are we following the thought, right? So a thought arises that I have to be somewhere at 12:30, so I have to leave here at 11:45, and I have to walk to the train station. And then when I get there, I'm probably going to have to call someone, and where should we have lunch after? So there's this train of thought that just immediately has this momentum. So we use our awareness to just realize the thought, I have somewhere to go, and then leave it where it is. Leave the thought where it is. If we're using that sky imagery, leave it in the sky, watch it dissolve. If we're just using the, focus on the breath, leave the thought where it is. I realize I have to go somewhere, back to the breath. Focus your attention once again. And those of you who have been doing this a while, and we've spoken about this before, mind looking at mind, right? You can also just focus your attention and awareness on what your mind is doing. Focus your attention on that calmness that you can settle into. And if a thought arises, you see it and just leave it where it is and just settle back into that calm. And that's a little tougher, and probably will take some time working the other techniques. So I'm not going to elaborate so much on that. But it's very similar to this technique of using that sky, because it's just a matter of being aware of the thought and settling back into that calm, spacious clarity. So let's do a formal session of meditation for a few minutes. I'll set the timer. I may say a few words during it. If I do start talking during it, stay with your practice, stay with your meditation. Hear me, but stick with the practice as best you can. Maybe I won't say anything. Here we go. if you feel uncomfortable, some tension in the body that's really distracting, you can shift if you want. You don't have to be completely locked and locked into that position. You can settle and shift, and then settle back into the posture. Great. Um, yeah, this type of work, what you're creating space in the mind in a way, kind of giving it air almost, space, um, where so often where there's a kind of tightness, that constant run of running thought, thought lines and internal monologue often keeps us very insular, closed off in our own head. Whereas working with your mind in this way really opens up some space, so your awareness becomes much wider, much broader, you know, taking in more of the picture, and able to relate to the world, relate to others, relate to your world, the outside world, the people in your life, in your close circles, in the wider circles, in public, in general, to relate in a way that's, less constant knee-jerk reaction to habitual patterns, and in a way that is in the moment. Where you have more choices on how to interact. When we're very wrapped up in that internal monologue all the time, our choices get very narrow and limited because we're relying on our programming, habitual patterns. And what we're doing with this practice is really kind of starting to cut through that and open up some space. Okay, Victoria's going to talk for a little bit, and then we can have some questions. This way. And we can have some questions after. Yeah.
As Michael was saying in meditation, we try to find the stillness of the body. When in the formal session of meditation, we try to find the stillness of the body. We try to find the silence of the voice. And with the mind, we try to find and connect to the openness, cloudless, the metaphor of it being the cloudless sky of our awareness. Because our awareness is just this open space of luminosity within which ideas arise, and action is based on these ideas, just like clouds arise in the sky. The clouds are what is called the movement of the mind. It's like taking the sky of our awareness and narrowing it down into these little conceptual bubbles. And we can put a lot of content into these little conceptual bubbles. And we really have to be aware of not separating the sky of awareness when we encapsulate it into these little tiny little movements of the mind. Because when the movement starts, the motions of the mind and conceptual mind clicks in, very often we lose any kind of feeling or understanding of being connected to the ground awareness, which actually allows that space, which allows for mental movement to arise. And we become very encapsulated and imprisoned into these little movements, the cloud-like little movements within the spaciousness of our mind, and we lose sight of the real space of awareness. That's why in meditation, we try to still our body, speech, and mind to connect to that spaciousness. And the reason why we sit in the 7-point Vairochana posture is actually so that our sacred physiology can be attended to properly. The sacred physiology being the 3 main channels through which the 3 winds, main winds, are flowing in our body, speech, and mind. The 3 winds being the central channel, which when we clear it, clears ignorance of dualism. The red channel clears the red channel being the wisdom channel, and that if it is obscured, instead of wisdom, what moves through it is our attachment. And the white channel, which is the channel of spontaneous action of love. And when it is obscured, it is the energy that becomes the movement of anger. And today I want to read a little bit from a book by Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche that is called The Sacred Body, and I recommend it tremendously. It's an easy book to read. It is written specifically for people like us, beginners, so that we can understand and perceive the ideas and the teachings very, very clearly. And Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche does tremendous amount of writing and work specifically on the energetic part of our body, the sacred anatomy, because we have to really understand that by the time the movie is rolling in our mind and we have all these kinds of ideations, he did it, she did it, da 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 da, all this has an origin and it arises with the quality of our energy that moves through our body, specifically through these three channels. So when we're working with the three channels, and we've done that work in our class regularly with the 9 breath purification. This is what this 9 breath purification, we exhale and clear the three channels 3 times, or as many times as we need to. We work with the energy, which becomes the basis for these mental movements that become these little bubbles into which we encapsulate everything and and ourselves. When we identify with anger or addiction or with ignorance of dualistic mind, when we're separating ourselves and pivoting others or ourselves and the world, etc., etc. So we work with the three channels by becoming aware of our sacred physiology, by clearing out the three channels. We do it as preliminary work before we even get to any main part of the work. Last week, for example, we covered Tonglen, how to deal with difficult people in difficult situations by taking them as object of meditation. But before that, even before that, as a preliminary step, we sit, we do the 9 breath purification, which we will do after this little intro, um, as a preliminary practice to prepare to do the main work like Tonglen. This 9 breath purification brings us to a much deeper level of awareness, to a preconceptual level of awareness where we're working with our energies, the quality of our energy, before we get swept away into little narrative structures that take us away and become bigger and bigger masses of clouds in our awareness. We do that to precede allowing the cloud masses to consume us and destroy everything in their path. And working with the three channels, this is what Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche says: the 9 breathings work with purifying or clearing the 3 root poisons: hatred, which is, or anger, which is the white channel; attachment or desire, which is the red channel; ignorance, which is the central blue channel. Ancient tradition believes that the 3 root poisons are not only the causes of all suffering, but also the causes of disease as well. In addition to causing suffering, the 3 poisons also obscure the subtle wisdom energies, which, when our channels are clear, they flow freely, and then we can connect to the subtle energy and the positive qualities available to us. These 3 channels are the deepest places in your body where the subtlest form of your suffering and confusion can be found. If you are able to purify your confusion at this level, it will definitely affect your life as you perceive and experience it. With the white right channel, when the white right channel is clear, the subtle tendency for aversion and pushing away our experience is cleared. It supports the expression of spontaneous beneficial action in the world, such as actions of love, compassion, joy, or equanimity. When the red left channel is clear of the subtle tendency to fill space or attach to things or thoughts, it supports the recognition of wisdom of emptiness. The pure space of awareness. When the blue central channel is clear of the subtle sense of a separate self, the struggle of ego identity releases, and there is no sense of separation. When your channels are clear and flexible, they support you to recognize the nature of mind, to be awake, fully present, connect to all life, and vibrant and positive qualities. The channels are a pure path to enlightenment. If the three channels are open, we have a sense of healthy spiritual well-being. So it is very, very important to work with our channels. Furthermore, we work with our channels to really perceive and discern before that energy turns into a storyline and now we objectify it and think that it's moving in the world independently of us. We catch that energy before it manifests into negative and afflictive states of body, speech, and mind. Anger in the white channel, desire, attachment, which could translate into addiction in the red channel, and ignorance, which separates us from others and pivots us and makes them see them as enemies and fear them in the central channel. And so it is very, very important to connect to the energy of a difficult place, whether it is desire, attachment of the red channel, or anger, rejection, or hatred in the white channel, and ignorance of separation, which is when we separate, it's exactly when we posit the ego, subject and object duality, when we posit that ignorant dualistic relationship to others and to the world, all of our difficulties arise. The other is perceived as an enemy. The whole world can be perceived as something that's against me. And that is the basic energy of the dualistic, of the ignorance, which is dualism. Do not get swept into the storyline. The storyline will sweep you away into the mundane chatter, samsaric, ordinary ego movement of conceptual mind. Conceptual mind is good for crossing the street, for cooking a meal, for brushing your teeth and doing other kinds of chores, but it is not the exhaustive element, and it certainly is not really what our awareness is at its ground level. Actually, our ground awareness is like the electricity, and the conceptual mind is like the blender or the mixer or the coffee pot that we need to plug into our base ground awareness, the open spaciousness. Uh, uh, you know, uh, all these little devices, the whole conceptual structure has to plug into the electricity and the base level of our awareness. Our awareness is the sky, and conceptual mind are the little movements of clouds that, if we don't catch them, they can become gigantic storm systems, such as when we go into when aversion becomes hatred and the storyline becomes so vast that the sky is no longer visible in that hurricane-like level of cloud, or when our addiction takes us out so far that our whole awareness has become centered on just the one object that we desire so strongly that we are able to demolish everything on its path trying to get to that. And all storylines are identical, they're interchangeable pollutants. Judgment, gossip, excuses, all this conceptual regurgitation just makes our ego dominant, and the force of the ego dominant, to the point of where we lose the light of our awareness. That's why we sit in meditation, we silence, we still our body, we silence our speech, and we quiet our mind so we connect to the sky directly. We also have to understand that very often we pick and choose storylines. So, for example, it's very easy to see very gross levels of hatred or very gross level of desire, because we know when we're so fixated on something or we have so much anger, it's spilling out of us. The more subtle levels of that is when we choose specific kinds of storylines and ideas which express and support that anger or that addiction and that ignorance. We will pick specific kinds of ideological things that will support those energy. So we have to be very, very careful and start to really work with just a pure energetic level of these winds as they arise. The wind of hatred, it's in us. It's not in that other person. By the time that we say that person, he did it, she did it, they did it, the world is so screwed up, you know, we've already been taken out of that ability to see that the wind, that the energy, that they call it the wind in Buddhism, in Tibetan Buddhism, the wind is called the horse, and the rider is the mind. The qualitative level of energy arises within us, and then the storylines are spun off of that qualitative energy. The wind of anger doesn't have to be just against others. That wind of anger, when it's impotent and helpless, will very often turn towards us, ourselves. We will be self-hating. We will loathe ourselves. We will feel impotent, but it's nothing but other than the anger arising not toward others, but arising toward ourselves. We've all been depressed. We've all known how that wind works. We all know what attachment is. We all know what it's like to suffocate in addiction. But the gross level of addiction, when all I can think about is the alcohol or the drug or the whatever object that completely captivates and encapsulates all of my mental energies. But a lot of times, the gross object is something that's visible, but the subtle level of it, our addiction to addiction, is not visible. So this is what we do in the 9 breath purification. We clear our channels even before we do the main body of work, like Tonglen or any kind of formal meditation session. We clear out and work with the energy in our channels. Try to be aware of the energy before it moves out of your body, speech, and mind into the world, and know that that energy is moving through us, and we have the control of stopping it before it materializes and seeds karmic seeds out in the world. That's how karma actually arises, when we are not aware of the energy of the right, of the red, white, and blue channel, and we're swept away into the narrative structure. That's when we're seeding all of the karmic seeds out there in the world, and start to be aware of it as this internal chatter with which we talk to ourselves. That's always going on. That chatter is the ego already kind of taking us away out of awareness into and talking us into, yes, that's okay, have that cigarette, you deserve it. Yes, that guy is really, he caused you all these kinds of problems, etc., etc. We have to work with preconceptual awareness to have awareness, period. That's why we focus on objects like, we take as a path in meditation our breath, something that's very, very neutral and subtle, before we get swept away into narrative structures. By the time we get swept into the narrative, it's over. It's very difficult to come back from that. So this is what we meditate on by simply working with the energies. Feel the quality of heat of the anger in the white channel. Feel the addictive quality that obscures our wisdom in the desire channel, in the red channel. And feel that dualistic energy, me against the other, me against the world, me against whatever, in the blue channel. Restore the 3 channels to their proper energetic place. Sit erect, open your channels, and then when you get up, also work with those channels, and as you move through your day, become aware of these kinds of things. And let's do the 9 breath meditation. We will do 3 rounds of each. We will clear anger, which also, you know, we've talked about it before. Before anger becomes hatred, it can start as frustration. It can start as being short-tempered and losing patience, and that it'll grow and grow like a light bulb on a dimmer. Before it's full on hatred, it'll start with little subtle things. So catching the subtle stuff as well as the gross stuff. And in desire, it'll be the same. It's like, I like this. I love this. I love it to death. You know, we have to qualitatively find all the point of arising to the point of explosion. We have to become aware of the qualitative things of that wind as it is inside us and then pushes to go outside through body, speech, and mind actions. And the same with ignorance. Uh, find that dualism and just breathe it out through the central blue channel. Don't live with that pivoting of us against everything else, because that's just a narrative. That's that's it's ignorance. It's basic ignorance that, you know, is the cause of suffering, of all the suffering. All the suffering is caused by separating ourselves from everything else and fearing it and hating it and comporting ourselves to it in all kinds of bizarre ways. You know, the deeper we get into judgment, the deeper we get into the chatter, the deeper we get into uh, uh, how do you call this? Oh my God, the deeper we get into gossip and judgment and excuses, you know, the more we're swept away from our center, from our peace, from our happiness, and the deeper we go into like the nightmare of feeling suffering. And the suffering becomes thicker and thicker, but it all starts here. It all starts with us, with the energy flow of the three channels. It's not out there. Suffering is not out there. The seed and the beginning of it always starts here with how the energy is in our body and how it will exit our body. So before it exits in any kind of negative way, as ignorance, as attachment, or anger, we, by simply looking at it, we can exhale the negative part and clear the three channels and restore them back, so that when we are actually interacting with the world and the others, that we find the spaciousness and we restore the energy to the natural place of how the energy should be flowing through us, without fear, without bouncing between hope and fear, without this great all-consumptive desire. And then we can move forward to altruistic intention and do other kinds of things with our practice. So first we clean ourselves, we clean house, we restore ourselves to our natural condition of spacious awareness. And so let's do the 3 breath purifications. Let's exhale the white energy of anger 3 times. You hold the mudra. This is a yogic mudra where you hold the negative energy flowing through our body by putting the thumb toward the ring finger, and then you do it on both hands and exhale the white channel anger energy and restore it back to pure spontaneous action. So bring up whatever you think or feel, whatever is negative, and breathe that negativity out and inhale pure white air um, of awareness.
So first is the inhale or exhale?
First is the inhale.
Inhale, yeah.
So inhale pure white light. Inhale right into your heart center and into your channel. Hold. Clear the white channel of negativity 3 times. Become very aware of your body. Inhale pure white. Exhale all negativity of hatred, aversion. Exhale all impatience, all shortness. The three channels intersect below our navel. And so when we're inhaling all the way down below our navel. And then we're exhaling from the navel out through the white channel. And now we reverse. We're going to clear our wisdom channel of attachment and desire and addiction. Remember, the objects don't bind us. It's our mind that binds us. So all the addiction, all the desire, all the I want to eat you up, that starts all inside us in our red channel. And now, keeping the same mudras, closing the ring finger with the thumb, we're going to clear ourselves of all the dualistic energy that binds us to the world in negative ways, and we will open it up for the air of purity of our Buddha nature to flow through our central channel, and we will really connect to our heart center as we're clearing the central channel. So inhale pure white. Bring it down to your navel, hold it for a moment. And then like a bow and arrow, shoot the negative air and clear your central blue channel. Push all your negativity out. And then on the third inhale of the central channel, we will visualize a green bindu, a green sphere at our heart. And we will exhale it directly through the crown. And that is what we call consciousness merging with all. And we'll stay in that for a moment. Inhale white. Bring it down to below your navel. And then like an arrow, shoot the air with the green bindu out through your central channel. And connect your inner and outer, the space that flows in your central channel, connected to the outer white purity. And know that that separation of self and everything that is other does not really exist. It's just ignorance. And when in our ordinary life we come into situations where we hear ourselves or see ourselves engaging with the world, I hate this person, I hate this thing, I hate my job, da 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 da, go right back to the source and exhale the energy of impatience, hatred with your right channel, clear your channel. Energy of addiction through your right channel, and energy of separation and ego dualism. Exhale it right out and connect to the world without fear, without separation, and clarity. When the energy of your three channels, of your true energetic makeup has been cleared, out of that clarity, look at things, but look at the world and others out of the clarity of the three channels and connect to everything, not through conceptual bubbles and the movement of conceptual mind, but connect with that openness of the three channels in their cleared form, and then go into any other practice that you do or
Excellent.
engagement.
Thank you. Do you want to just talk about how they should visualize the three channels?
The three channels, the two side channels are connected to our nostrils and go behind our eyes all the way through our body in front of our spine, and connect with the central channel below the navel. The central channel, the blue channel, goes all the way through our entire body and actually opens here, what is called the Brahma aperture. The central channel is always open to everything and connects us with everything. Our ignorance is what blocks it and makes us feel like we're all alone, we're in here, we're in our mind, and causes that wisdom to be obscured by the ignorance of dualistic mind. It is the thing that causes the fear, confusion, loneliness, and all of these kinds of things, because the central channel connects us to the sky-like awareness of our mind, and we often take that for emptiness, and we're always afraid of that. We spend our entire life trying to fill that emptiness, but it's not emptiness, it's fullness, because it's like awareness of everything. That's where everything kind of begins. Thoughts arise and vanish into that sky of awareness. We don't have to fear it. It's not emptiness in the sense of some kind of a vacuity. It's actually that which connects us to everything on a preconceptual level. When we're in the park or we're out in the nature, we don't have to conceptualize being open and connected to the sky, to the trees, to the earth, to the wind, to the flowers, to the grass. We're simply open. We're not afraid. We're not disconnected. That's if we can clear our channels and actually partake and engage in being connected. You know, we can stand in the nature and we can access all of it. And we don't need to think, I am here, this is me, this is grass, this is tree, this is air, this is sky, I'm hearing birds, these are flowers. We don't need any of that chatter. We're simply connected. And we need to bring that into everything with us, into life. So really, realistically speaking, only out of that kind of clarity can we actually see what's in front of us. Because if the storyline that is fueled by our fear, by our aversion, by our desire, precedes the awareness and experience, we have no experience. All we do is experience all these little thought bubbles. The narratives are like superimpositions. They make us incapable of experience. They color experience. It's almost like putting a drop of poison into a pure glass of water. It could be just a drop, but by that time, that drop of fear, that drop of anger, that drop of desire, that drop of ignorance pollutes the whole glass. And by that time, we're really not able to drink it any longer. So we cannot have the experience. By exercising the purification of our channels, by actually really connecting to our sacred anatomy, we can experience everything all the time new. all the time fresh. We can be present because it's the only time that we actually experience. If we're going into a situation and we already have a whole narrative playing out in our mind, those are not experiences. We're just walking into our old storehouse of ideas and fears and concoctions that's already all polluted and has already brought us into that whole hurricane weather where the sky is completely under the cover of the clouds, and we forget that we even have the sky. All we do is just walk into our regurgitated old fears or desires or ignorance, or all of them all together usually, whereas connecting and clearing our pathways, knowing, connecting to our energy as it is. We can experience everything always fresh and new. Nothing is boring then. I mean, the world is not like this old, oh, this old job, oh, this old friend, oh, this old whatever, you know. And that's also when we actually have this energy to work with, is when we can do real work in the world. We can have real experiences, we can have real clarity, we can be free to make decisions rather than be imprisoned into these confusions, into these whole giant webs of conceptual confusion. We can experience, we can act, and we can actually bring about benefit. We cannot bring any kind of benefit based on confusing, afflicted mental states.
So the channels on the central channel is blue. The right channel in men. Could you just for the visualization?
In men, the right channel is white, and the left channel is red. And in women, it's vice versa in some of the older systems. You visualize it however you feel comfortable with that. You know, spend time on visualizing your inner sacred anatomy. Connect to your winds.
So that's not, it's not critical which side on which
No,
color.
and we don't need to elaborate on it whatsoever.
Okay.
Connect to it however you want.
Good.
The central channel is always blue. That channel is really like your access to the roof of your awareness, the roof of the world, so to say. It connects you to everything and everyone. And when the channel is not blocked, we don't have to walk around in fear and conceptual elaboration. It's preconceptual mind. It's like I said, it's the electricity into which all the little devices have to plug in. So when we connect to that, because we're all little devices that connect to the space of awareness, the same electricity powers each and every sentient being. And I don't mean only sentient beings which are visible to us, like us and our pets and animals. There are 6 realms of beings, according to Buddhist metaphysics. And we all have the same sacred anatomy, all of us.
Can you say the name of the book and the author again?
The name of the book is called Sacred Body, and it is Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche. The Sacred Body, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche. Rinpoche in this particular book also gets not only the 9-birth purification is a preliminary practice, but he gets also into the chakra work, which is also very important, a little bit later, more mature work. Once you get the three sacred channels very clear, and you connect to them, physically connect to them, not just some kind of like an idea, but you really can feel and catch before your energy becomes anger, before your energy turns into obsession, before the energy turns into this me and the other, me and everything against me thing. When you can catch your energy before it becomes that, if you can catch it and you can restore it back to its original condition, you will always feel well, and you won't see negative karmic seeds all over the place. Because you can always, you know, our energy is not out there until we bring it out there in form of activity of body, speech, and mind. Before we scream at someone, we go back into our body and into our mind and into our speech, and we grab that energy and we breathe the mutation out of it, and we restore it back into our channels, into its pure form.
So Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche. Nick, that it's a Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche. Maybe we'll put that up on the on those. This book is called Awakening the Sacred Body.
Yeah, I said it wrong. I'm sorry because I didn't have my glasses. It's Awakening the Sacred Body.
Yeah. I've always had an issue with Siddhartha abandoning his palace, his wife, his family in search of enlightenment. I just can't see a way in which that abandonment is moral. Is the path to enlightenment one that must be walked alone? Well, first of all, he didn't really abandon them to poverty and, you know, nobody taking care of them. They lived in a historical Buddha lived in a palace with many attendants and many people taking care with a lot of abundance. So it wasn't like a father leaving a wife and a kid who has no other way of, you know, feeding themselves or clothing themselves or in the house, you know, things like that. It wasn't, so abandoning is tricky there, saying that it was you know, something very negative. Walking a path alone, well, you're only you can walk the path. You don't have to abandon, you know. I mean, if I abandoned my kid, my wife rely on me to support them and I walk out, that's a negative action, of course, because I'm putting my needs or my desire or whatever I think I'm pursuing above this karmic situation that I'm in where people rely on me. But I don't see the same, you know, comparison. But the spiritual path, yeah, only you can do that. You know, no one else can really give you that. You have to pursue it. You have to do the work. You have to find the teacher. You have to do the study. You have to do the meditation. Nobody can give that to you. You know, a teacher can, of course, help you along that path and be a guide, but you have to do that for yourself, you know.
We're born and we die alone, and the same thing goes for spirituality, the path. And the path is, of course, going away from judgment, such as how could he do this, how could she do that. You know, remember, we can store a lot of our negativity by connecting to certain ideas. It may seem like we're being very moral, but in the meantime, we could also be very judgmental and hide anger in a very kind of a stealth way in certain moral judgments. We pick certain ideas above others because they suit our disposition, and that's what I was talking about earlier, becoming aware of subtle forms of ignorance, anger, and attachment. Of course, we walk the spiritual path alone. And if the Buddha was a doctor who had to go to another country to save patients, would we say the same thing about him? Well, Buddha was a doctor because Buddha brought us the medicine, the teaching that actually was able to save countless lives. So if we can get out of that very small-minded, moral, ethical, social structure, which a lot of times can house a lot of angry ideas. And anger is ours personally, because we don't necessarily have to take that point of view. But I think it's important to become aware what's stored in these ideas. They may look very glossy and really good to us. They may make us feel like we're on the right side of everything. But we have to know, is there subtle anger in those ideas? Are we saying things because they suit those kinds of narrative bubbles and webs? So, you know, have to find it for yourself. Was it important that the Buddha did what he did? Did he benefit countless sentient beings? You decide. you figure it out.
Yeah, that's a good analogy with the doctor. So if a doctor has the ability to go to another country, and has to, leave his family to do that to save, 5,000 lives.
Soldiers have to do it,
Is
doctors
that
have
worth
to
it?
do it. Lots of people have to do it for the benefit of others. Again, as Michael said, this is not to defend Buddhism because it's the path we walk, but as I said, if the Buddha was a doctor, would he choose to stay with his wife and child if he knew he could save 10,000 or a million? So you decide what's there.
How do I know if meditation is changing my outlook on life?
Because when you enter into various situations in life, the same situations you've been entering consistently, uh, if those situations are changing toward the positive, if you're gaining control, if you're losing fear, you're losing aggression, like the darkness is diminishing and the light is going up, you feel lightness in the presence of those with whom you felt very difficult. You have forgiveness, you're releasing the tension, you're bringing the light. Then you know that the practice is working. Remember, practice is only a practice if we're applying it to life. Practice is not a sitting on the cushion. We sit on the cushion to prepare. It's like gassing up the car, but the journey happens while we're in it, and we're going to beneficial places. When our intentionality changes from serving ourselves, being smug in our ideas, to serving others, to opening to others, to thinking of others, being present, being aware. Michael made this analogy yesterday at dinner with friends. He said, when when you meet a person from whom you feel love, you feel they're very, very open. What you feel is their sense of awareness. That love is like a byproduct. The warmth that they exude is a byproduct of awareness. What you feel primarily is that they're aware of all others. They're aware of you, they're aware of him, of them. And that's, for example, our teacher, Garchen Rinpoche, when we're in his presence, it's the temperature in the room is different. There is warmth. And the same thing you will feel when you expel from your three channels, when you expel the negativity, you will feel the warmth of awareness. Awareness has it's not an intellectual quality. It's like the presence. When you love someone, it's not an intellectual quality unless you're saying, I love you because you support me, you give me this, you buy my food, you do this. Those are egoistic driven conceptual ideas. But when you feel love, it's just being open to them completely. And there's a sense of warmth and clarity and shininess to that moment. And that's how you know when your practice is working, is that when you can bring those qualities, not ideas, qualities that now generate a different level of ideas altogether. So that quality, when you come into the presence of others, you're thinking, what can I do for you? What can I do for them? How can I make their life easier? How can I alleviate their suffering? Then your practice is on.
Also, when you notice your impulses, negative impulses like jealousy, like your friend says, I just got this great new job, and you become aware, instead of rejoicing that your friend got this job and how wonderful it is from, you're aware that you're jealous and you wish it was you, and you're a little resentful that he got this job, that he's going to be making more money than you. But the fact that you are aware that you're jealous, right, rather than just immediately tighten up and just thinking about how much you're upset about this, the fact that you're aware that you're jealous can allow you to kind of just let that go, let that breathe, and be present in rejoicing for your friend, and be present in the fact that something very wonderful happened to him, and sharing that. That's also another way.
Yeah, that means that in that moment of awareness, you're catching the wind of the negativity, and don't go into judging it, conceptualizing it, analyzing. No, you just Bring your awareness to that quality of energy and just breathe it out, and bang, and it's gone. It's over.
Okay. Is it normal to get dizzy, a bit dizzy after the breathing exercise? Yeah, when you're taking deep breaths. Maybe I don't think that's much of an issue.
And don't make it very forceful. The
Yeah,
point is awareness. It's not stretching. It's not
right.
a physical exercise. It is a physical exercise in the sense of calming your body, speech, and mind. At the same time, it's not about just physical wellness. It's The physical wellness will be a sidebar. It will be like a natural outcome of it. Of course, when we're positive, when we're radiant, we will be healthier. There's no question about it that, negative energies cause negative physical and mental and physical states. So focus really much more on about opening the awareness and breathing out the negativity. But it's good that you're feeling it on a physical level, because it should be a perceptual experience. Just like when we feel the heat of anger or the cold of anger, we connect to it on a complete body, speech, and mind level. It should be a perceptual thing, but focus really more on ridding body, speech, and mind of that quality of energy.
Since we discuss addiction, what are thoughts on AA? I have 11 years sober, still seeking a way of connecting with a power greater than myself and prayer and meditation. AA is a very good program. I know a lot of people who've gotten sober with it. Yeah, they speak about God in AA, and they also say you can define God for yourself. It should be a power greater than yourself. I mean, Buddhism, is a very good uh, way to kind of incorporate those things, because although there's no God in Buddhism, you're talking about non-duality. So connecting to the interconnectedness of all things and all beings, the interdependence of all beings and that stuff, that's a very easy way to relate to a power greater than yourself, because, the ultimate truth in Buddhist terms is just that, is a power that's much greater than yourself, or, and that's the true nature of our reality. And in terms of prayer meditation, well, meditation we do here, and prayer, like the aspiration we make, the four immeasurables, like we do at the beginning of class, setting our intentions, and then at the end, dedicating merit to the benefit merit that's gathered or accumulated through the practices that we do, dedicating it to benefit of all beings. Maybe you can use those two things, those two prayers, in meditation, and maybe do some study, continue study of Buddhism, and that can really open up, I think, the power greater than yourself thing.
And I rejoice for you that for 11 years you've been able to battle such a difficult thing. Uh, of course, you only battled it by connecting to the greater than what you call yourself, a version of yourself power. That's our awareness. And of course, our awareness is only alive insofar as we connect it for the benefit of all sentient beings. So when we're performing things for benefit of all sentient beings, is when we're actually using that power as such. And things like Tonglen that we discussed last week. As Buddhists, we can change the outcomes and energetic structures of the universe by meditative practices. We don't always have to jump out and do things. Doing is, of course, is the expression of body, speech, and mind. We can also do it in meditation, bringing to your mind people in very difficult situations, such as in throes of addiction, beings who are imprisoned, people who are dying, people who are burying loved ones, doing practices on taking their difficulty, dissolving it in our heart center, and then sending them energetically all the white light and restoration of their energy, uh, wiping away their suffering that way. Those are all very important practices, as well as doing physical things in the world to benefit
Okay.
others.
We're out of time, so we're going to take one more question. Those of you who we didn't get to answer, you can email Michael Imperioli Meditation 101 at Gmail. I believe that's correct, Nick. Michael Imperioli Meditation 101 at Gmail. So the last question is, isn't anger a necessary self-protective instinct that we can't totally let go of? I say this from the point of view as a woman who sometimes has very poor boundaries that open me up to hurt and predation. You know, we've talked about this in class before a little bit. Righteous anger. And to me, those are two separate things. Righteousness and anger are separate. And I use the analogy of like a boxer, right? When like Muhammad Ali was boxing, what he liked to do sometimes would be to taunt his opponent to get them angry. Because once that person was angry, they would lose the control, the tactical control that's necessary to really be good in boxing. And then he would exploit that loss of control and overpower his opponent. And that analogy, you know, you can take and think, well, anger, that energy of anger, we might think is very forceful and has, you know, a self-defense mechanism. But if you think about people who are skilled martial artists and stuff, the last thing they want to do is get angry because it obscures their clarity. It, you know, clouds the, you know, the focus. So in terms of boundaries to getting hurt and being, you know, and predation, as you say, it's the clarity that's going to help you create those boundaries rather than the anger, reacting to the anger that this person is putting, you know, reacting to the, you know, reacting out of anger to this abuse that's coming your way, this negativity that's coming your way, to just being clear enough in mind to saying no, to create the boundaries. I'm leaving. You're out. You can't live here anymore. I can't live here anymore. I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I want to block you on my phone. I'm going to block you on Instagram. I'm going to block you from sending me emails. Whatever those boundaries you make, whatever are necessary. The anger can really kind of cloud what the best decision is in the moment. Not that, you know, you should feel guilty for having anger. You know, these are natural feelings. It's becoming aware of the fact that you're angry. So you're not just reacting without control, reacting without focus, reacting without any kind of clarity. So you can be more effective in your decisions.
And you also have to become aware, are you angry all the time? Are you angry before you even meet or engage with someone? Is your anger a lens to everything in the world? And I would also say, you know, anger itself is the suffering. So by carrying it, it's like by saying, I want a disease, I want a suffering, which will then be like the glasses through which I view everything in the world. Being reactive and understanding clearly who the other person is and what action to undertake, we don't require any kind of a lens. What we need is just fully open awareness. And then we can respond properly, just as Michael say. Carrying anger is like carrying cancer or fire inside. So I can't see how that could possibly be beneficial to anything or anyone. And also be careful also by separating and saying and identifying, I am a this, so I'm not a that. I am a woman, so what are the men are all against me or something like this. You know, every time we identify, we pivot ourselves against others. It's a mental position. We're already dividing the world into chunks and seeing everything opposite. And that's really the basic thing of ignorance is the dualistic mind. If I say I'm white, he's you know, he's Asian or he's like this, I'm dividing the world. You know, I'm a woman, you know, you know, I'm dividing the world. So this divisiveness is the suffering. It is the very basis of all the other afflictions. So we have to be very, very careful that we're not allowing these subtle afflictions to always be present in our mental continuum, because A lot of times, when we feel this kind of like division and we feel impotence, even before anything happens, we're already ready to meet the whole world through these afflictions. How can we possibly expect any kind of happiness or love in the world when we view everything through this poisoned outlook? So, very important, if you seek happiness for yourself, let alone happiness that you can bring to all others, you must make sure that your mind is not polluted by these kinds of ideas that really kind of hold you down into that physical space of anger and separation and pivoting and duality and, me against everything and everyone else. Uh, you don't need anger to deal with the world and to hold your ground. Actually, what you need is clarity. We all do, not you particularly. We all do. That's why we touched on the 9 breath purification today. It's because only out of the space of awareness can we be free to choose and to act. When we are afflicted by negative mental states such as anger, we are lost. We're not in control of anything because we're already triggered. Something has already pressed our button. And the button often stays on the whole time. When we sleep, when we eat, we habituate these states of negative afflictions, of negative emotions so deeply that they become our identities. And so just make sure that it hasn't seeped into you so deeply that you're not even aware that it's become the sense of who you think you are, because that's not really who we are. Those are just habitual patterns.
Okay. Just lastly, someone responded to the person in AA. I've been sober 31 years and I've found the Dharma, Buddhism, to live up perfectly to AA. Getting out of self, practice requires discipline in both. To me, it's a perfect union. Thank you for that. And with that, we'll close by dedicating the merit from today's session to the benefit of all beings. By this merit may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Thank you, Nick Solidio, for making this possible, our kind producer. We probably won't see you for a few weeks. There's some traveling that we all have to do, so see you soon. Sooner than later, though.
Practice. Thank you.